Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. Life can change in the blink of an eye. One moment, Lytuna was smiling, sharing her gratitude with the world, and the next, she was fighting for her life after a sudden accident. What really happened on that road? Why was Alex left trembling in despair outside the emergency room? And most of all, will Lytuna's fragile heartbeat survive this storm of fate? Stay with us until the very end, because every second of this story carries the weight of love, loss, and hope. If you enjoy these emotional journeys, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us reach our first 1,000 followers, and it means the world to us. The day began with a quiet tenderness. Sunlight spilled gently across the floor, its warmth almost fragile, as though the world itself wished to shield Lytuna from the heaviness in her body. She greeted the world with soft words, her gratitude flowing like a whispering stream, gentle, sincere, yet tinged with the fatigue of recovery. Her eyes sparkled with a delicate light, but her hand instinctively rested on her stomach, betraying the fragility that words could not conceal. Alex, meanwhile, stood at the edge of two worlds. One was the orchard, vast and demanding, filled with contracts, partners, and the ceaseless rhythm of work. The other was here, within the quiet room where Lytuna sat, pale yet resilient. His phone buzzed with negotiations about grapefruit harvests and export deals, but each vibration felt hollow against the silent plea in her gaze. Outside, the orchards thrived under the careful touch of rain, their branches heavy with promise. Inside, Lytuna fought quietly against lingering pain, her smile attempting to mask the storm brewing beneath her ribs. Alex watched her closely, his chest tightening with the awareness that no business triumph could ever match the weight of her well-being. It was a fragile balance, the abundance of nature versus the fragility of one human life. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, caught between a flourishing season and the shadow of uncertainty. Alex reached out, brushing her hand lightly, as if to anchor both of them in the present. Yet, somewhere deep inside, a quiet fear began to bloom. The peace unraveled swiftly. A sudden wince crossed Lytuna's face, and the calm she had carried shattered into shallow breaths. She pressed her hand hard against her abdomen, her lips tightening as though to stifle a cry. The room, once warmed by sunlight, grew heavy with silence. Alex's heart lurched. He had seen her discomfort before, but this was different. It was sharper, darker, carrying an omen he could not ignore. At the orchard, his phone had buzzed relentlessly with partners asking about shipments and harvest cycles. But the moment he heard her voice falter, every business concern evaporated. He rushed back, his mind repeating only one thought: "Don't let me be too late." When he arrived, his mother was already at Lytuna's side. The older woman's steady presence offered strength, but her eyes betrayed the same fear Alex carried. She whispered that perhaps it was just postpartum pain, but Alex could not convince himself. The uncertainty gnawed at him, each glance at Lytuna's pale face striking deeper into his chest. Together, they made the decision no one wanted to delay. She needed to be taken to the hospital. Alex supported her carefully, each step echoing like a fragile prayer. In the car, his mother's voice broke into murmured supplications while Lytuna leaned weakly against the seat, her breaths uneven. Outside, the world moved as if nothing had changed. Vendors shouted, leaves rustled in the breeze, But inside that car, time had narrowed into dread. Every heartbeat whispered the same plea. Hold on. The road blurred beneath flashing lights, the wail of a siren cutting through the afternoon air. What began as a desperate drive to the hospital had spiraled into chaos, an accident, sudden and merciless, folding reality into fragments of fear. Alex's arms tightened around Lytuna as paramedics lifted her carefully, their urgent voices weaving through the panic. He caught only fragments. Concussion, internal bleeding, stabilize. Each word fell like a stone into his chest. The scene around them was dissonant. Scattered glass glittered cruelly under the sun, and bystanders whispered in hushed tones, their faces pale. Alex felt as though the ground had collapsed beneath him. Just hours ago, he had been speaking of fruit harvests and contracts, and now all of it felt unbearably trivial. The only truth left was the fragile rhythm of Lytuna's breath against the silence. Inside the ambulance, he held her hand tightly, afraid she might slip away with the next tremor of pain. Lytuna's eyes fluttered half open, then shut again, her strength fading. Alex bent low, his voice breaking as he whispered her name, a plea laced with desperation. But the siren drowned him out, carrying them faster toward the unknown. At the hospital doors, the red light above the emergency room blinked on as they wheeled her inside. Alex was left standing in the hallway, his palms trembling, staring at the door that had swallowed her whole. For the first time in his life, the man who led companies and commanded fields felt utterly powerless. The emergency ward was suffused with a sterile chill. A red light glowed above the door, pulsing steadily like a reminder of the battle being fought within. Alex stood frozen in the hallway, his figure rigid, yet his heart crumbled with every second that passed. Around him, people came and went. Nurses in swift strides, doctors murmuring instructions. But all he saw was that single door separating him from Lytuna. He pressed his back against the cold wall, then pushed off, pacing a few restless steps before sinking into a chair. His hands locked together, knuckles white as though he could will strength into existence. The man who once commanded boardrooms and farms now stared at the floor like a lost child, waiting for news that never came quickly enough. In his mind, fragments of Lytuna's laughter surfaced, her gentle greetings to the world, her gratitude, the warmth she carried even in her weakness. Those memories collided painfully with the image of her pale, unconscious face in the ambulance. Alex clenched his jaw, a silent plea repeating, "Don't take her from me. Not now. Not like this." The hallway clock ticked loudly, each second stretching into eternity. No contract, no harvest, no empire mattered in this moment, only her. Alex's chest heaved as he forced back tears, his gaze fixed on the unyielding door. Behind it, Lytuna was fighting for her life, and he was left with nothing but helplessness. Never had silence carried so much weight. Never had waiting felt like such torment. Time stretched unbearably in that narrow corridor. Alex sat hunched, his face buried in his hands, every muscle in his body taut with unspoken fear. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with the quiet shuffle of passing nurses. Yet for him, the world had reduced itself to memory and dread. In the silence, his mind betrayed him. He remembered Lytuna's voice from just days ago, soft, resilient, assuring everyone that she would recover. He saw her holding their child, exhaustion in her eyes but warmth in her smile. The memories came not as comfort but as knives, each one cutting deeper with the thought that they might never return. He tried to steady himself, whispering that she was strong, that she had already endured so much. But the weight of leadership, of being the man everyone depended on, now pressed down cruelly. In the boardroom he was decisive. In the orchards he was unshaken. Yet here, before the closed doors of an emergency ward, he was stripped bare. His heart pounded with helplessness, each beat louder than the last. At times, he rose abruptly, pacing the corridor with restless steps, as though movement could wrestle time into moving faster. At others, he sank back into the chair, gripping its edges as though clinging to the world itself. And still, the red light above the door burned, unyielding, unforgiving, holding his entire future hostage behind its glow. The red light flickered once, then dimmed. The door opened with a slow, deliberate creak that seemed to slice through the heavy silence. Alex leapt to his feet, his breath caught in his throat as a doctor emerged, mask pulled down, eyes calm but serious. For a heartbeat, Alex could not speak. He searched the man's expression desperately, clinging to any hint of mercy. "She's stable," the doctor finally said, his voice steady. "The injuries are not life-threatening. It was a shock to her body, compounded by her recent childbirth, but she will recover." The words hit Alex like rain on parched soil. His shoulders sagged, his fists loosening as if chains had fallen away. Relief came not as joy but as a shudder, a trembling release of fear that had gripped him mercilessly. For the first time in hours he inhaled deeply, though his chest still burned with the residue of dread. He whispered her name, Lytuna, as though saying it might anchor her to him, to life itself. Yet beneath the relief, another current stirred. The thought of nearly losing her left him shaken, vulnerable in ways he had never allowed himself to be. He realized how fragile everything truly was. All his orchards, all his contracts, all his ambitions meant nothing compared to the faint rise and fall of her chest behind those walls. Alex pressed his palms together in gratitude, eyes glistening. Tonight, the universe had granted him mercy, but the echo of despair lingered, reminding him how close he had come to living without her. Night had already fallen by the time they returned home. The house, once heavy with fear, now glowed softly in the lamplight. Lytuna rested in bed, her breathing even but faint, her skin pale against the white sheets. Alex sat at her side, his hand lightly covering hers, as though afraid that letting go might invite fate to steal her away again. The baby's quiet coos drifted from the next room, tended by Alex's mother. Life, fragile yet persistent, pulsed through the household. But for Alex, the world had narrowed to this small room, to the gentle rise and fall of Lytuna's chest. Every breath she drew felt like a gift, every flicker of her eyelids a miracle. He watched her sleep, and in that silence, the weight of the day pressed fully upon him. The contracts, the endless calls about harvests and exports, all of it felt insignificant compared to the near loss he had endured. He realized that no orchard, no deal, no empire would matter if she were not here to share it. Leaning back, his eyes moist, Alex whispered a vow only the night could hear, to cherish every ordinary moment, to never let ambition eclipse the fragile beauty of life beside her. Outside, the rain had ceased, The air was clean, cool, almost tender, as if the world itself understood his silent promise. In the end, storms pass, but they leave behind a lesson. That love, fragile and fleeting, is the only harvest worth guarding with all your strength.
Tử Na sau khi sinh vẫn còn yếu, cô xuất hiện với lời chào cảm xúc của khán giả, nhưng cơn đau đớn bất thường khiến lo lắng. Trong lúc bận rộn công việc ở vườn bưởi, định mệnh ập tới. Tử Na tai nạn giao thông, cô được đưa đến phòng cấp cứu. Ánh đèn đó lập lòe nhấp nháy, còn Alex thì tuyệt vọng đứng ngoài hành lang bất lực trước cánh cửa sinh tử. Thời gian trôi chậm nặng nề, trong đầu anh chỉ vang lên những ký ức nỗi sợ mất đi người phụ nữ yêu thương. Cuối cùng Tử Na thoát khỏi hiểm nghèo nguy hiểm, trở về bên gia đình, nhưng khoảnh khắc chạm cái chết khiến Alex nhận ra tình yêu và sự sống mong manh mới là điều quý giá nhất.